Conducting thermal energy. Something you should note, in general, metals are excellent conductors, while plastics, wood, and fluffy materials are pretty awful conductors. So metals, great conductors, and I'm going to explain why. A metal, if you were to look at it very microscopically, like at the atomic level, you would see that metals are really close together. The atoms are really closely and tightly packed together. And gases, on the other hand, are really spread out. So my gas is going to be kind of like all spread out across the screen here. And so if we were transferring thermal energy into this metal, this is our metal on the bottom here. If we were to transfer thermal energy to one side of it, then that particle would absorb the energy, almost like kicking a soccer ball, you know? And then that particle would transfer to this particle, and this particle, and then this particle, and it would go right on down the line, kind of like Newton's cradle, you know, those little balls that go tick, 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 back and forth. That's exactly what's sort of happening here, and that's why metals are great conductors, is because the particles are so close together. Whereas in a gas, they're not close together. So if I were to transfer thermal energy into this particle, then it would probably like bounce into this one, and then this one maybe, and then it would go way over here. Who knows? You know, just since they're all spread apart, it takes a long time for the thermal energy to transfer through them. So in general, metals, great conductors, gases, not so much. And I put a few examples here to illustrate this for you. One being a toaster. If we want our toast to get hot, you know, we're going to run the electricity, the energy through some metal so that it transmits it to the toast. Excellent conductor inside of a toaster. This blacksmith probably was working on a piece of metal down here in the bottom left, and it's glowing hot. And you know, blacksmiths have to wear super protective gloves, and they have to use tongs, because even though this part of the rod is red hot, the thermal energy will transfer all the way up and travel up this rod into the opposite of conductors. They are poor conductors of thermal energy. They actually block thermal energy. They're kind of like a wall for thermal energy, which is kind of nice because we don't always want thermal energy to leave. We want to keep it and we want to use it. And so in the case of staying warm in the winter, you wear a jacket, which is made out of nice fluffy feathers, sometimes, or just some sort of fabric or whatever. But that fabric has a lot of air in it. It's very fluffy. Air is a poor conductor. It's a good insulator. And so that's why we wear jackets, to keep the heat inside of our bodies. Cardboard is also a good insulator. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And if you look a close picture of cardboard, you'll see that some cardboard is corrugated, meaning that it has these corrugations in them, or these little gaps, which is air. Air is a good insulator. So if we can make a structure that somehow has some air pockets in it, that's generally going to be a pretty good insulator. Wood is the same way, except you can't see it very well, but if you look at wood underneath a microscope, this is, I think, 200 nanometers or something like that, 200 nanometers or micrometers, very, very small, very, very zoomed in, but you can see that the wood has lots of little tubes going through it. Lots of little spaces for air, and it makes it a very good, not a very good, but a good insulator, much more so than, say, like a chunk of metal. I mean, wood does not conduct nearly as good as metal. It's actually more of an insulator than it is a conductor.